Okay, so yesterday we did a career video on Juan Sebastian Veron, but now I've figured out a way of doing career videos that's kind of interesting. So we started obviously with Adrian Mutu this summer, then we did Diego Forlan, now we've done Veron, now we're doing Hernan Crespo. Now they all link into each other through Juan Sebastian Veron and Parma. Yes. Forlan played alongside Veron at Manchester United, but all the other players played at Parma. And Hernan Crespo played at both Parma and Lazio alongside Veron in Italy. And it's a really interesting story looking at all these players. Plus Crespo played at Chelsea at the same time Adrian Mutu was at Chelsea. Yes, so it's a very interconnected web that I've come up with. But let's have a look at the career of Hernan Crespo, because it's a very interesting career. He's currently the manager of Sao Paulo in Brazil, so he's transitioned into a manager. He starts his career at River Plate. Yes, he starts in the Argentinian league with River Plate in 1993. He would remain there until 1996. 64 appearances, 24 goals. He wins one Copa Libertadores with River Plate and two Apertura Premier Division titles. Because of the way the Argentinian top flight works, you have the first season and then the second season you have the Apertura and the Metropolitano, and he wins the Apertura title twice with River Plate. It's also at this time that he's playing for the Argentinian under-23s at the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996. He was an Olympic silver medalist in 1996 with the Argentina team. Obviously, special rules at the Olympics. The majority of the squad has to be under the age of 23, apart from two overage players. He was still under the age of 23 at the time. And it's because of his performances with River Plate and with Argentina at the Olympics that he earns his move to Europe. And this is where he makes his name. So in 1996, he moves to Parma. And Parma at this point are winning a lot of silverware, and he's part of a very, very successful Parma side in the 90s and the early 2000s. He played 116 games in competitive matches for Parma, not including friendlies, 62 goals, but he wins a Coppa Italia, a UEFA Cup, and a Super Coppa Italiana with Parma. 116 games, 62 goals. It's basically a goal every 2 games. So his goals per game has gone up from 1 in 3 to 1 in 2, pretty much. So he's a very reliable, potent striker. And he was known for that throughout his career. Absolute lethal in front of goal. He was a goal every 2 games for Argentina. At the Olympics, it was a goal a game for Argentina. So prolific goal scorer. And not only that, he was also a creative player as well. If he wasn't scoring, he was assisting others with the scoring, either through direct or indirect play, running off the ball, or picking up the ball and bringing others into play with deep runs. Very creative forward. And it's in 2000 where he makes history, joining Lazio. Now, Lazio and Parma were 2 of the big sides in Italy at the time. They were challenging the established dominance of AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juventus at this point. And he goes to Lazio for a world record fee at the time of £35 million in the summer transfer window in 2000. Back then, people were stunned at the value of this transfer. It's only 4 years removed from Alan Shearer becoming the most expensive player at £16.5 million, leaving Blackburn for Newcastle United. So you can see that the transfer fees have not only doubled and some, but 35 million back then was seen as stunning. This was a huge amount of money 25 years ago. Doesn't even get you an average centre-back now in the Premier League or in Europe. But 35 million back then is worth what? Well, look at how much Alexander Isak's gone for this summer after that prolonged transfer saga between Newcastle and Liverpool for 125 million. 35 million for Hernan Crespo is a bargain. Now, Lazio can't continue the success that they had in the late 90s, and then they hit money problems. But at Lazio, he plays 54 competitive matches, scoring 39 goals, and he does win the Super Coppa Italiana with Lazio, but they can't rediscover their Serie A winning form or their Cup Winners' Cup winning form or the Super Cup, things like that. They can't rediscover their success from the previous couple of seasons. They hit money problems, and during his time, Nedved leaves, Veron obviously leaves, and a few other key players within that Lazio side move on. And very, very quickly, he moves to Inter Milan. Now, he only spends his first spell at Inter Milan for a season in the 2002-2003 season. 18 competitive matches, only the 7 goals. So injuries are also impacting him a little bit at this point. Chelsea come along, and he goes to Chelsea for a much reduced fee from the 35 million that Lazio paid for him only 3 years before. About 18 something million they signed for him. Now, he's officially a Chelsea player between 2003 and 2008. However, he would spend lengthy spells on loan back in Milan with both AC and Inter before making his move to Inter permanent. But whilst at Chelsea, he did play 49 games. He did score 20 goals. These are competitive matches. He wins the Premier League and the Community Shield as a Chelsea player. This is in the early Abramovich era. He's one of those Abramovich signings. Now, obviously, with the amount of money Chelsea start spending and the team they build and the change from Ranieri to Mourinho, obviously he's in and out of the Chelsea side. He does spend periods on loan, like the 2004-2005 season with AC Milan, where he would be a runner-up in that Champions League final against Liverpool, but he would play 28 games that season, scoring 10 goals. He wins the Supercoppa Italiana with AC Milan. He's also a runner-up in the Champions League final, where they were 3-0 up at half-time, and they ended up being the miracle of Istanbul. AC Milan had the game in the bag, and then they fall apart in the second half in extra time, and of course Jerzy Dudek becomes the hero in the penalty shootout. He goes back to Chelsea for the 05-06 season, and then he's sent off on loan to Inter Milan for 2 years, between 2006 and 2008. He plays 48 games with Inter Milan, 18 goals, 3 Serie A titles and 2 Supercoppa Italianas with Inter Milan. This is a very successful Inter side. He makes that move permanent in the 08-09 season, where he wins his 3rd league title, scoring 14 goals that season. 14 appearances, 2 goals. So his goal scoring starts to drop off dramatically from the 2008-2009 season onwards. The goal scoring dives off a cliff. He would spend a season at Genova in Italy, 2009-2010 season, 16 games, 5 goals, and he would finish his European and his professional career at Parma, the club where it all started in 1996 after leaving River Plate. 46 games in the 2010-2012 seasons, 10 goals, and he would retire. Now, he also won the Pan-American Games with Argentina in the 90s as well, which is a competition we don't really think about. But so he had success with Argentina at the Olympics and Pan-American Games. But it's that world record fee that stuns me with Crespo. Brilliant player that he was. Injuries did start to impact him towards the end of his career. And when he wins the Premier League title with Chelsea, people were saying when he joined Chelsea, oh, he's done, he's washed up, he's a bit part player. And yeah, I think it's a bit unfair to suggest that, because he did spend the majority of his Chelsea career actually out on loan at other clubs. But he had an impact at Chelsea. Not quite a goal every 2 games at this point. His goal scoring is starting to slow down. But he had an impact and was a crucial member of the Premier League winning squad that won that year. That record fee, though, for Lazio just shows how overinflated transfer fees have become. Even then, that was seen as a ridiculous amount of money. Now that is seen as a bargain transfer, and some good transfer dealings done in the transfer market and some good scouting. And while it didn't fully work out for him at Chelsea, he still had good success at AC and Inter back in Italy. And he won a lot of silverware as a player. He wasn't a bad player. I think he's very underrated as a player. I do think, though, that his time at Lazio, while he scored a lot of goals, that first spell at Inter Milan, the injuries start to hit a little bit. He loses half a yard of pace. And then when his second spell at Inter, the goal scoring does start to dry up a little bit, and by the end of his career he's not at the same goals per game ratio that he was earlier in his career, where he was scoring goals for fun. But he's obviously fondly remembered by Parma fans for his time at Parma in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was a brilliant Parma side that somehow failed to win the Serie A title. Now, Parma obviously would have their financial issues in the 2000s that were well documented, but Parma in the 90s were a brilliant team. They were everyone's second favourite Italian team, I seem to remember. They had a lot of great players who would go on to have great careers at other clubs. And Italy is where he really makes his name as a player. And his Chelsea stint, it just didn't quite work. He was a bit like Andrei Shevchenko as well and Fernando Torres. He didn't quite settle into the Chelsea setup, but scored some crucial goals and was part of some winning teams at Chelsea, which is very, very interesting. We need to look at Andrei Shevchenko and Fernando Torres as well because of that Chelsea link. They had some unhappy times at Chelsea themselves. Again, bit part players, not at their best, not as at their most lethal, but they still contributed with some really important goals for Chelsea. So that's the next link in the chain of career videos that I think I'm going to do. I'm going to do it like this from now on. I'm going to find a link between one player and the next player by the clubs they play for, the nation they play for. It's going to be really interesting. But thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the career of Hernan Crespo in the comment section below, and I'll have some more comments for you all very, very soon.